All right. Thanking and praising God for the way in which tough choices actually pay off. Let's call Matthew chapter 10 for my sake, as this chapter reminds me of the adult choice that it takes to basically let go of enough self-interest and personal ambition that we can actually find our genuine sense of purpose. Understanding, at the risk of taking a tangent way too soon, it wasn't until I realized that my fit is actually a part of my purpose. Meaning, the more narrowly I focused on what I wanted to do, the more I ignored those parts of myself that demanded, in order for me to be emotionally fulfilled, to find my fit with other people. And to the degree I did not allow God to help me find that balance, I would either be too self-interested and narrow to understand the value that other people had in my life, or I would be so gullible and needy that I would place too much trust in people that were not a healthy fit for me, or really anybody else for that matter, because I was not accepting God's counsel about the importance of finding those who were sacrificing enough of their own self-interest to understand the value of doing things for his sake, understanding the way in which he made us and therefore best understands how we fit together. That seems to be the principle that drives his instructions to his 12 disciples as he is sending them out on mission, I'll call it, in Matthew chapter 10. Understanding that, let's just break it down generally. These summaries have been way too long. I'm going to try to keep this one briefer. In the first 4 verses, it's going to talk about the way that he is going to give his 12 authority over the unclean spirits, every disease, and every affliction. It's then going to name them, as in verses 5 through, as I see it, essentially the rest of the chapter. He is going to give them their instructions as I see it, roughly, just borrowing from the ESV's paragraph breaks, basically breaking those instructions down into 3 forms. Let's say his instructions to you, or the 12, seems to run, or that theme seems to run from verses 5 all the way through verse 33, with him, much like he did in the Sermon on the Mount, breaking from his instructions to them, helping them understand their purpose, to making it relevant to him, helping them to understand why he is doing this and why he has come to the earth, to Israel at this time in the first place, as he is then going to help turn their attention to kind of those who are in the balance, the them, those who in particular they're going to actually be able to trust. It might not be obvious who those people are, but they're going to be very important, and that's going to conclude the chapter where he gives their instructions. But beneath all of that, in that section in which he is directly addressing his 12, that's going to seem to break down even further into 3 sections, verses 5 through 15, as I see it, describing their mission, verses 16 through roughly 25, talking about their condition, or the environment that they can expect to find awaiting them on their mission. And then finally, their mindset, the mindset that will keep them healthy and moving forward through all of the adversity they can expect to face in the conditions awaiting them. Understanding that this is a chapter that, if I'm going to summarize it in roughly 5 minutes, it's going to be incumbent on you to go through this one, if no other chapter, even though you should be going through all these on your own. Go through this one on your own, because there are a lot of famous instructions in these sections that I can't even begin to, quote unquote, scratch the surface on if this is going to be a brief discussion. But understand the general theme in that first section of the instructions basically gives them who they're going to, not to the Gentiles, not to the Samaritans, but to the lost sheep of Israel. Similarly, that's his mission. Going on from there, he is going to, he's going to say, with the authority that they have been given, they are to heal, raise, cleanse, and cast out. Healing the sick, raising the dead, cleansing the lepers, and casting out demons. Super similar to what he has already given them an example of. Saying they should do that without pay because they've freely been given the gift. Likewise, that's what they should charge. Nothing. They are going to be worth what they actually accomplish. Understanding that there is a peace that they are going to bring to worthy households. Yeah. If people don't want them, don't force yourself on them in terms of trying to persuade them of how valuable you are because your intentions are pure. Don't worry about it. If they don't want it, leave. There's a certain peace that will come with you if people accept you for the goodness that you genuinely bring. If they reject it, they're rejecting the blessings that come along with your presence, the blessings of God. Understanding that, he's going to tell them, don't be surprised when people reject you. Shake the dust off of your feet and keep it moving. More importantly, that's not going to be the only rejection you're potentially going to face. Why? Because in describing the conditions in verses 16 on through verse, 25, he is going to say, understand a few things. First of all, he is sending you out as sheep among wolves. Beware of people. Don't be too trusting because they're going to look to turn you over. Why? Because he's going to describe the conditions of the town. Of the time. In general, it's going to be a time of betrayal. But before that, he's going to say in verses 19 and 20, don't be anxious when they throw you in front of courts and sell you out and betray you, because you're going to be taken into certain circumstances, sometimes by adversity, because God has a message to send to those people through your persecution and adversity. But understand, it's a perilous time for everybody, especially you. Everybody's going to hate you because of the work that you are doing for his sake. Specifically in verse 18, our subject, one of our subject verses comes from verse 18. I'm jumbling up that section, but like we said, read it for yourself. Within all of that betrayal, understand that when they persecute you, not only are you not necessarily going to be speaking, it is going to be God's Spirit speaking through you to accomplish his purpose and deliver his message. But also understand, beginning in verse 24, a disciple is not above his teacher. And therefore, the things they have seen Jesus go through to this point are super important, because they are now going to be a reflection of the things that they are going to suffer, not only in this chapter, but as we will soon see in at least by chapter 12, and specifically, they're going to see it in the life of John and the things he's suffering already as well. And so, God willing, the things that they have seen in the Christ, the good and the bad, are actually going to be able to strengthen their mindset, as we have mentioned, described in verses 26 through 33. Understanding that he is going to tell them not to fear, understanding that they should not squelch or hide the truth that he has given them. They should courageously, the things he has told them in secret, proclaim in public, not being afraid of the consequence. Oh my goodness, that's convicting. But God willing, as they did in the Acts, once they saw the courage of some, others prayed for likewise the courage to speak truth as well. And God willing, we will take courage in these times as well to speak the truth diplomatically and in love, but not to stifle it just because of intimidation. Going on, though, his example hopefully will strengthen them in facing the adversity ahead, because he is going to say, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Specifically, let me just read verse 34. Do not think I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. A passage that is super easy to rip out of context and use to fight our own battles, quoting Jesus as our justification. But the battles that he is fighting are the battles that God has specifically laid out for him. Too often, we pick our own fights and try to use Jesus as a justification for that. He is following in his Father's footsteps, and he's telling them likewise. They're not here to fight their own battles. They are here too on his behalf, as we said in verse 39. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. The conflict that they are finding is because they are closely adhering to the things that are done for his sake. Understanding that, he is going to help them to understand that it is not all about the misery that living for him is going to attract. There are going to be some friends that they are not necessarily going to be able to find until they tell the truth that he is giving them to tell. It's going to be a risk, because the whole chapter is devoted to all the adversity it's going to bring them. But it's also, on the flip side, going to expose people that they can genuinely trust. And God willing, that's a lesson for all of us. Understanding in life, the intimidation that life offers, especially in these times, can be enough to want us to rationally withdraw and just kind of avoid unnecessary conflict. However, much like we see here in the 12 who are being sent out, there is no way we will necessarily know those who are genuinely trustworthy in our lives until we take the chance to tell the truth and run the risk of losing friends. Understanding that, as we have talked about from time to time, kind of low key, the relationships we can be tempted to cling to in fear and have truth are keeping us away from understanding and forming relationships with people we can actually trust. And so the common sense approach to real friendship that requires us to tell enough of the truth to lose fake friends, and maybe even more importantly, those alliances that we sometimes use as a surrogate for genuine friendship. In a lot of ways, it's helping us to understand what Jesus is saying when he says in verse 39, whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Maybe we can substitute that out by saying, whoever loses fake friends for my sake will find genuine, trustworthy friendship. My paraphrase, of course, but it's one of the reasons why we sometimes say God's best to you as you go forward with him.